Hi, my name is Catherine Del Valle, and this is a required video for my EDU 583 Linguistic Theory class at Georgetown College, which is under the supervision of Dr. Vesterlund. I'm here with Shannon Hunt, teacher at the middle school, at Russell Middle School, and we've worked together with students, with our ESL student, to make any accommodations, and also we will be discussing some of the trends that we found in working with ESL students, and any recommendations that we have also worked with and are working on, not only for this particular ESL student, but for other students, ESL students that we'll have. So the ESL student that we're going to be discussing today, we're going to call her Fanny. She is a 7th grade student, female student. She came to our area in October from Mexico.
Yes.
And she has a very interesting home life because her stepmother is from here in Kentucky, speaks English, and can also speak Spanish, right?
Yes.
And then her father is from Mexico. She lived in Mexico. She was born in Mexico, and she lived in Mexico until they moved
Right, until they moved here.
here. And then her biological mother passed away at one
Right.
point.
In Mexico, and her father went back to get her.
Right.
He was the next of kin. Yeah.
Right. So her father is still in Mexico. She's living here with stepmother,
Right.
and she has one other sister who also is from Mexico.
Right.
Is
Special needs,
special needs student, nonverbal,
Down syndrome, nonverbal. Yes.
and so that's the situation she has in her home life. So she does have English though at home because her
Right.
mother does work with her English because of the fact
Right.
that English is her stepmother, I should
Right.
say.
And when they
first
first
language.
came over from Mexico, they stayed with some friends, and those people knew no Spanish. So for like her first 2 months, I think it was like August and September before she came to our school, she lived there with a couple that only spoke English. So
Okay.
yeah, that I think helped a lot.
With regards to her test scores, when she came in October, she was given the WAPT score test, and the scores at the beginning of the year showed a composite score of 1.35, which is emerging. So she was pretty, low in comparison. She was given the access test in January, and did really well. I mean, her showed a lot of improvement. Her overall score was a 3.1, which puts her in the category of developing.
Right.
She scored pretty high. She scored in reading and writing. She had a 3.5 in reading, a 3.2 in writing. She had a 3.8 in listening, 2.7 in oral language, 3.3 in literacy, and 3.6 in comprehension. Her lowest score was speaking, and that was a 1.9. She's able to read and write, a lot easier. And also, the analysis of her speaking sample showed that she could do more speaking than maybe before.
Right.
Because the analysis that I took of her was now towards the end of the year.
Right, toward the end, yeah.
And her writing also looked like it was a lot better. With regards to her accommodations, her PSP plan here, we know that accommodations and modifications that we follow here at school, she has a reader in English. She has simplified language. She can use a English bilingual dictionary. She is able to do small group or single test form administration. She is given extended time, and she also gets prompting and cueing. So those are all of the accommodations. The classroom strategies that were given to teachers to use. Basically, she could read text in English. She can use that bilingual English dictionary. Prompting and cueing, provide visual organizers, extended time, small group, single test form administration, build background knowledge, modify assignments. She could have assistive technology, of course, ESL.
iPod. Gave her an iPod.
Okay, iPods. And model language, task completion, and provide interaction opportunities and simplified language. So those were the classroom modifications that were specific to her PSP plan. Now, with regards to her prior knowledge, we can see her reading and writing skills just from that access test were really good, and she could, she can read, pretty at her. I don't know. Would you say she could read well at her level, or?
Yeah. Yes. I would offer, like, we had our math curriculum in both math and Spanish, and she would choose the English. When I would give her the option, toward here in the last few months, she always refused the Spanish. And then I would ask her, do you want one of each, just in case there's, and so, she would take it just for some clarification, because, it was more complicated. She's a 7th grader, but we put her in a 6th grade math class, because her math skills were not quite there yet. So, but it was a 6th grade level content that she was doing.
And you were using the language of mathematics.
Mathematics, yeah. And so she was choosing the English, text, and doing fairly well with it. So.
Okay. And so, according to her scores, we have our WIDA can-do descriptors. So I've got it. You got a copy here that we've been using this.
All right.
And so, because of her level, we put her at a level 3 in listening, which means that she could categorize content-based examples from oral directions, match main ideas of familiar text aloud to visuals. She can use learning strategies described orally. She can identify everyday examples of content-based concepts described orally, and she can associate oral language with different time frames, past, present, future. Okay, so that would be for her listening.
Okay.
And then with regards to her speaking skills, which were the lowest, from the test scores, she was at a level 1. So she could answer yes and no choice questions. She could begin to use general and high frequency vocabulary. She could repeat words, short phrases, or memorize chunks. She could answer select WH questions like who, what, when, where, within context of the lesson or personal experience. So that's what she was able to do. So we're hoping that that she's moved up now even.
Right.
And I think we've seen some of that even towards the end of the year.
Yes.
From when the test was done. With regards to her reading, she was, again, a level 3 developing. She could identify topic sentences, main ideas, details, and paragraphs. She could identify multiple meanings of words in context, use context clues, make predictions based on illustrated text, identify frequently used affixes and root words to extract meaning. She could differentiate between the fact and opinion, answer questions about explicit information in text, and she could use English dictionaries and glossaries. Like you were saying, reading, she didn't want that Spanish, the copy. She wanted to go to the English.
Yes.
And I know you've even said, like, her speaking, she was always wanting to speak.
Right, because, yes, there was another student in the class who also spoke Spanish, and she would be the one, to try to help the other one with the English. You would see her over there saying the word to her and things just to kind of help her along. So yeah, she was wanting to
practice her
English
it
and help somebody else with it. Yes.
With regards to writing, she was also again at a level 3. So she could produce short paragraphs with main ideas, some details, create compound sentences, explain steps in problem solving, compare, contrast information, events, and characters, give opinions, preferences, and reactions along with reasons. So that was her writing skills there. And then in her final, we have listening. No, we did listening. Right? Listening, reading,
Yeah, we did them.
and
Yeah.
writing. Okay, so we did them all. So those were the things. Those are the things that she can do. Those are those can-do descriptors that we use in ESL that help the student know, and the teacher, of course, what that ESL student can do. Now, we, we're going to talk about. Yeah, we're going to talk about the language issues. So, there is a difference. She speaks Spanish, Mexico,
Right.
and there is a difference between Spanish and English that could cause native speakers issues, grammatical issues, just speaking issues,
A lot of the
writing,
phrases,
phrases, things like that. So we know the grammatical structure with regards to speaking after analyzing some of her samples and just being able to speak with her. She uses a lot of the slang, like. She puts like in her in
Right,
between,
in her things,
trying to explain things.
Right.
And she uses there's in Spanish, because you don't have to have a written subject,
Right.
or you don't even need it when you're speaking. She's kind of confused a little bit with that because she doesn't realize he, she, or she confuses the he, she
Right.
as the use. So with the verb use. So what other grammatical things have you noticed with her?
One of the things, for instance, all the S words like sphere or something in math like that, she would say like S-sphere instead of just sphere, or like scale, S-scale.
Right, and that's that sound that we have to. I know in Spanish, the S sound. So. It might be like, and then even names. I know I've heard where she'll call somebody, and I think it's because in Spanish we have that, like, if your name is, let's say, Estefania, you have ES.
Right.
But then in English, if we have Stephanie, so then they go back to the Estefany.
Yeah.
And so, so that is a common issue that they have. Also, the sound of the we call it the American English glide sound Y.
Right.
Like you have yellow,
and
you have jello, and then in Spanish, when a Spanish speaker is trying to say that in English, they'll say jello.
Right.
Right.
Yellow.
And so you think which one are you saying?
Right.
And I know I even can say personally, I have family members who do that.
That do that
a lot.
Right.
They'll say or even what color is this? It's jello. And it's just their accent.
That's their accent.
And so a lot of that,
and how they're trained,
right, and it's training and it's practice. So for her, one of the things we need to do with her is just continually practice those words, so we can explain to her that no, it's not. This is jello, and show her the word jello, Jello, and then show her yellow and say the Y is and we have to practice the mouth form. Just like we would do in Spanish.
Right.
We also know that there are similarities in our vowels, Spanish and English.
Right.
The only difference is, of course, the sound.
The short vowel sounds are hard for them.
So what kind of problems have you noticed?
The and especially the short I and the short E. And it doesn't help that we're in Kentucky and that Kentuckians have trouble saying their anyway, like it's an egg instead of an egg, like in Kentucky, and
exactly,
and you could see her sometimes, like it's like if you, and I would be trying to work with her on English, and I say egg, but then there's people in the class that are like, I want an egg, and they're like, wait,
and that's that dialect, that we even have here in the U.S. Where the different areas just have that accent and that dialect, and so that's probably.
I would joke with her and I would say, you came to a difficult place to try to learn English because we have some issues.
Right, so she's trying to learn English, and on top of it, she's got this other dialect going on. And so and we know that in Spanish and English we have similar alphabet.
Right.
Because I think even the double L and the double R are not considered part of the alphabet anymore. Or the Enya.
Right.
So they have the same letters.
Right.
I think the only difference is just the fact that it's the pronunciation of the letters
vowel sounds
and the vowel sounds.
Yeah.
And then one of the other things, a a lot of times Spanish speakers have is the verb tense. Because of the fact that we don't use, or Spanish speakers, I include myself Spanish speakers,
Right, sure.
don't use the pronoun or the, in front of the verb. It's understood.
Right, it's an understood, yeah.
And so
It's why it's difficult for students learning Spanish they always want to put the subject. Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that she has some problems with.
Yes. Pronouns. Yes, I think, yeah, definitely.
We were discussing that at one point.
Right.
How she, you've kind of tried to explain it to her.
Right. And the to be verb is very difficult. Like sometimes the is and are, because like, for instance, I was saying like the tenaire phrases and things. I sometimes, she'll want to say like you is, or like it's not, she has a lot of trouble, it seems like, especially with the to be idea
in
English.
Because tenaire, in Spanish, tenaire means to have.
To have, right. So to have thirst or to have hunger, yeah.
Right, and we say, I am hungry,
yeah.
I am thirsty.
And you'll see her say like, and she kind of fumbles around. You can see her trying to,
to use that, with the verb tenses. And of course, and then you have, where in English, it's, I run, you run, he runs.
Right.
And in Spanish, there's all these different endings.
Right.
In the language. And so, for a student who is learning English, now they're realizing, wait, there's no changes in this.
There's no changes, right.
That it's the same thing for I run and you run and, we run, and so now who's running? So then that's a lot of that is where we can practice the pronouns and the subjects with her to try to explain the tense that goes with the subject.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to Fanny's level of Spanish, she's moving up, and I think she's doing pretty well because she doesn't want to use a lot of help Spanish-wise.
Right. She did not carry they gave her an iPod. At the beginning, she did carry it to lunch and things, especially in social settings, but she started leaving it in my room more and not relying on that as much as the year progressed. To then I would say, do you want this? And she'd say no.
And I think it's a lot maybe has to do with the fact that her stepmother is a good support system at home.
There was one other support with her that I forgot to mention was we have a student they put her on her team, on the student's team, because she she came to the United States when she was like 5 years old, so she's been in school and speaking English since she was about 5, but her family is from Colombia. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, her cousin went here last year, and he had just moved here from Colombia. And so in that aunt and stuff, so she still in the home speaks Spanish a lot with her extended family. And they placed Fanny on her team so that she would have a friend who also, though, knew Spanish enough that if she got in a bind, and they formed a really great friendship. I mean, I even saw them the last day of school giving each other a hug.
Right.
I think that helped Fanny a lot because she felt confident and secure in trying to speak in her social settings with this friend.
Which is very important for an ESL
important. And but then in the classroom, she was in all her classes except math. We put her in 6th grade math class, but she was in 7th grade classes with this girl for all the other ones. But what was happening, the reason we made the change in her math that happened early on was Fanny was relying on this other student so much in math, and it was frustrating the girl. Like, she was trying to pay attention. I tutor the other girl in math, so math isn't her strong suit, and she was getting behind in her math because she was trying to help Fanny so much with the language issues too. So we tried to alleviate that a little bit by moving her to a different math class, and they put her in my math class in the 6th grade, and she was okay with that because she had said that, and I explained 6th and 7th grade math are very similar anyway, but that was probably, when we tested her, that was one of the weaker areas for her was mathematics. So anyway, but that peer helped a lot. It really did help her a lot, I think, and just they would not speak in Spanish.
In
they were
English.
speaking in English. But if she got in a problem, the other girl could help her a lot.
Yeah, because I know as part of the analysis that I did of her English sample, she spoke to me in English, and then if she came across a word, she would say it in Spanish. But of course, she also knew I spoke Spanish, so
Right.
she
And
was
she does
comfortable
the
with
same
that.
thing with her friend, I think, too.
And she gives the word in Spanish, and then she'll keep going
Right.
in English.
Right.
So
she would do that with math class, too. She would say, be in English, and then every once in a while throw in a Spanish word. Yeah.
And so I think that she's moving along nicely in her English learning, and hopefully now for next year, for the next school year, she'll start off, and she'll be able to continue.
She wrote me a note at the end of and handed it to me yesterday on the last day of school, and it said it thanked me for helping her with her first year in the United States, but it said, I know that next year will be a much better year. Like, she just had this positive,
awesome.
Outlook and things about it. So just said it was hard coming, and she didn't start the year out with everybody too, and that's obviously has its own issues too. Yeah, coming as a new student. So she wrote it in Spanish. But it just indicated how much more confident she was feeling in her studies. And
I appreciate you taking the time. Today was our last day here, closing day, and so
plus the empty shelves.
Yes, the empty shelves, and so we, I appreciate you, staying and getting this done with me, and so we know exactly next year we're going to be starting a brand new year. And be helping our ESL student, and now we have more information. We've learned a lot with regards to can-do statements, what we can do with them, common issues that they have with regards to the language, linguistics, to help them along and learn better their English, and especially a student who's really wanting to do that.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I thank you.
Absolutely. See you later.